I mean, ultimately, that's when I look at the event horizon of artificial intelligence, it's why? Why would we're so flawed. We're not going to get our shit together by the time artificial intelligence is given birth to.
Well, that all goes to what we build. I mean, if we build artificial intelligence that is independent of us and seems conscious and is more powerful than us, well, then we have built in the limit, we have essentially built a god that we now have to be in relationship to, and hopefully that's works out well for us. And it's very easy to see how it might not. I think there are even scarier cases than that, though. We could build something that has godlike power, but there's no reason to think it's conscious. It's no more conscious than our current computers, which is to say that intelligence and consciousness may be separable phenomenon. Intelligence can scale, but consciousness need not come along for the ride. And that, for me, is the worst case scenario, because we inherit all of the danger of the power of this system being misaligned with our interests. We could build something that's godlike in its power, and yet we could essentially be canceling the prospects of the evolution of consciousness, because if this thing wipes us out, I think it's Nick Bostrom, the philosopher who wrote a great book on this entitled Superintelligence. I think he calls this the Disneyland without children. I mean, basically, we could build this incredibly powerful, intelligent landscape that continues to refine itself and its own powers in who knows what ways perhaps that are unimaginable to us, and yet the lights aren't on. There's nothing that it's like to be this machine or system of machines in the way that it's probably nothing that it's like to be the internet right now. You think of all that's going on the internet. I don't think the internet is conscious of any of it right now. The question is, could the internet become conscious of what it's thinking? And I think there's no reason to think it couldn't. It's just we don't understand the physical basis of consciousness yet.
The real question is, why would it do anything? I mean, if it doesn't have any of the biological motivations that people have to breed and to stay alive and to fight or flight and to be nervous and this desire to carry on our genes. I mean, if you really did build the ultimate supercomputer, artificial intelligence that was beyond our capacity for reason and understanding, wouldn't it just do nothing? Because everything is pointless.
Well, no, but we would
program it.
It would do whatever we asked it to do initially, right? I mean, things we program now have goals. Right, your thermostat is trying to regulate the temperature in the room, and when it gets too warm, it kicks on the air, and when it gets too cold, it kicks on the heat. And I mean, that's a goal, right? And so everything we build that's automated has goals explicitly programmed into it. And when you're talking about a truly intelligent machine, it will discover goals that you have never programmed into it that are intermediate to the goal that you have programmed. So if the goal of this machine is to pick up all the trash in this room, and you physically try to stop it, well, then it's going to try to get around you to pick up the rest of the trash in the room, right? So it's I mean, this is probably already true of a Roomba, right? I actually don't have a Roomba, but if you put something in the way of the Roomba, it's going to get around the thing you have put in its way so that it can get to the rest of the room. So that's an intermediate goal, and some of these goals need never have been explicitly thought about or represented, which is to say programmed into it, and yet they're formed by the fact that the thing has a long-term goal. And one of the concerns is that we could build something that has a long-term goal, build something that's super powerful, that has a long-term goal which in principle is benign, right? This is something we want, and yet it could discover instrumental goals that are deeply hostile to what we want. I mean, the thing doesn't have common sense, right? We haven't figured out how to build common sense into the machine. So, I mean, there's just cartoon examples of this kind of thing, but one example that Elon used when he first was expressing fears about this is just, if you built a machine, the only goal of which was to cancel spam, right? No more. We want no more spam. Get rid of the spam. well, an easy way to get rid of spam is just kill all the people, right? Now, that's a crazy thing to think, but it's not, unless you've closed the door to that intermediate goal, there's no reason to think that a super powerful machine couldn't form such a goal.
My question would be, if this super powerful machine has the ability to create new super powerful machines, would it use the same mandate? Would it still try to follow the original programming, or would it realize that our original programming is only instrumental to the success of the human race, and it might think the human race is ridiculous and preposterous, and why not just program something that it thinks is the ultimate intelligence, something beyond our capacity for reason and understanding now? And that thing, I would wonder, in the absence of any sort of biological motivations, in the absence do you think of all the things that we do? I mean, you break it down to what motivates people to get out of bed, what motivates people to do good, our sense of community, the desire to breed, the social status, all these different things that motivate people to do things. Remove all of those, and what actions would it take, and why?
Well, I think you want to build it in a way that is focused on our well-being. And so, for instance, I had Stuart Russell on my podcast. He's a computer scientist at Berkeley, who, unlike many computer scientists, takes this problem really seriously and has thought a lot about it. And in his lab, I believe they're working on a way of thinking about the safety that is open-ended and flexible without pretending we have any of the right answers in the near term or likely to have them. So you want to build a system that wants to know what you want, right, at each point. Like, so that's tracking what humanity wants in terms of its goals, and wants to stay aligned with whatever it is we want. Wants to learn from what we seem to want based on our behavior, but and so there could be some kind of clarifying function where we can get our priorities more aligned in dialogue with this super intelligent machine. But the bottom line is, it always wants to. It doesn't think it knows what we want, and it continually wants to keep approximating better and better what we want. And so, from my point of view, the most crucial thing is you always want the door to remain open to the statement, wait, that's not what I wanted, right? Like you want to be in the presence of this godlike superpower that will always take direction from you when you say, wait, that's not going in the right direction. And so the fear is we could build something that is just not amenable to being controlled in that way.
Is it not the case that computer scientists are starting to come around to the idea that there's real danger, there's dangerous potential in AI? I mean, I was listening to when you talked to Will McCaskill a few weeks ago, who was saying, it was just a few years from starting to think about how to split the atom to actually having a bomb. Are they not coming around to the idea that technology can progress much faster than we think of?
Yeah. Well, it's a whole spectrum of the people who think that this is never going to happen, or it's so far away that thinking about it now is completely irrational, to people who are super worried and think that huge changes are imminent. And so it's just the spectrum.
I'm with the latter.
Yeah, no, as am I.
Well, my concern is not even with the initial construction, like the initial AI. My concern is with what the AI creates. If we give the AI ability to improve upon itself and look at our irrational thoughts and how we've programmed itself to support the human race, and then it might go, well, why the fuck would I do that? Like, you guys are ridiculous. Like, this is a new life form. This is a new, we've given birth to some incredibly potent new thing that we think of it as artificial. But I mean, is it really? It's just a form of life. It's a form of life that we've created. Human beings have sort of, the analogy I always use is that we're some sort of an electronic caterpillar giving birth to some spectacular butterfly that we're not even aware of while we're building our cocoon. We're just doing it. I mean, is the caterpillar fully conscious of what it's doing when it makes that cocoon? Probably not, but it just does. And there's plenty of examples of that in nature, of something that's doing something, that's going through some metamorphosis that's completely unconscious. My worry would be, I guess it's not even really a worry. It's more like looking at the possibility of the AI improving upon itself and making a far better version than we could create, like almost instantaneously, right? I mean, isn't that, if you give it the ability to be autonomous and you give it the ability to innovate and to try to figure out what's a better way around things and what's a better way to program things and then make its own version of what it is, it's going to be spectacular. I mean, it really will be this is obviously just talking shit, but it really would be a god. I mean, you're talking about something that if we give it the ability to create, we give it the ability to think, reason, rationalize, and then build something better. I mean,
and by build, you should be thinking more software than hardware.
Right.
I mean, there's anything is possible. Anything that can be built with intelligence can be built with intelligence. So you could be talking about armies of robots and nanotechnology and everything else that is the staple of the sci-fi scare scenario. But more likely and certainly faster and ultimately more powerful, you're talking about something that can rewrite its own code, improve. I mean, it's the code that is dictating the intelligence. And so you're talking about something that could be, for the longest time, invisible and just happening on the internet. Right, you're talking about code that could be put into financial markets, right, which could be built to be self-modifying, right, and it's already out in the wild. It's not sequestered in some air-gapped computer in a lab. It's out there and it's changing itself. Now that would be a totally irresponsible thing to do from a software designer's point of view, I think, at this point. But there's just no question that we're going to get to a place where, it's either will be the province of one lab that gets there first, or it will be open source. But you're talking about software, right? Us figuring out how to write better software, which becomes the basis of general intelligence, and then where that gets put and what gets done with that's the question.
Isn't it a real question of also the race to see who can come up with one first? I mean, once the idea gets put out there, like the idea of the nuclear bomb, I mean, obviously no one in their right mind thinks it's a good idea to make a nuclear bomb.
Well, that story is especially sobering because I may forget the details. I think it was, I could have this backwards. I think it was Rutherford. There were two famous physicists involved. It was either Rutherford, who said we're never going to unlock I think it was Rutherford gave a talk saying that we're never going to unlock the energy that we now know to be in the atom. And Leo Szilard the next day produced the equations that unlocked it, right?
The next day?
Yeah, the next day. And in direct response to this announcement, like, okay, that's bullshit. And the next morning woke up and produced that. Produced the math that gave us the atomic bomb. So it can happen really fast. And if you want to get those details exactly right, listen to what Stuart Russell said on my podcast.
Well, Oppenheimer, in like a really ironic twist, wasn't he a Buddhist?
Was he?
No, he was a fan of Hinduism. Technically, I mean, he taught himself Sanskrit apparently in 3 months. One never knows how much this is exaggerated, but
to what end?
His publicist will tell you that he taught himself Sanskrit in 3 months to read the Bhagavad Gita. Which is one of the texts of Hinduism.
The quote that he gave out as the first bomb was tested.
Yeah, I have become death,
destroyer of worlds. I am become death, destroyer of worlds. Yeah. What the? And then when you hear him say it, it's even more creepy because you can see the sort of remorse in his. Have you seen that?
No.
Yeah. James, also, the photos. Get the photo. I mean, every photo of Oppenheimer.
He looks tortured.
He just looks haunted.
Yeah. Well, he was hanging out. It's weird to see him with this general. I was watching some documentary on the creation of the atom bomb, and he was, he's hanging out with these generals as they're...
Probably Curtis LeMay, yeah.
Yeah, and you see the two of them together, and you're like, what a bizarre pairing. Like, this one monkey needs this other genius to make this bomb so he can drop it on these people, and the guy realizes that if he doesn't make it, someone's going to make it, and it could be dropped on them. You know,
Well, that's the thing. We were genuinely in a race condition there,
Yeah.
and we didn't know how close the Nazis were. It turns out that they weren't as close as we feared. But yeah, just imagine Hitler having gotten there first, right, with the help of Heisenberg and others.
Play it, Jamie.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
He does not look like a happy dude.
What a burden.
Yeah.
I mean,
But it's actually, when you read the history of that effort, the Manhattan Project and the Trinity test, it is super sobering because they move forward in a context of real uncertainty about what was going to happen. I mean, in terms of the yield of the first bomb, there was a range, I think, of a 100-fold difference of opinion of what they were going to get once this thing went off. And there were some people who still placed some possibility on the prospect of it igniting the atmosphere and just canceling all of life. Right now, they had spent a lot of time they did something like due diligence where they were many of them were confident it wouldn't. But that was not beyond the realm of possibility for some of the people working on it. And so we have shown a propensity for taking possibly existential risks to develop new technology because there's a reason to develop it. And in this case, the destructive potential is so obvious because it's all destructive potential. I mean, we're building the biggest bombs we possibly can build, and so it's not difficult to think about the danger. It's all danger, right? And these bombs, now getting in the hands of the wrong people. With AI, it's so seductive because if it looked at in one light, it's just all upside. I mean, there's nothing better than intelligence. There's nothing more intrinsically desirable than intelligence. And so to get more of it seems an intrinsic good. And so it takes an extra step to say, well, wait a minute, this could in fact be the most dangerous thing we've ever done. And you have to spend a lot of time fighting that ideological battle with people who just think, no, this is just all upside. This is what could go wrong. You're just scaremongering. You've seen too many Terminator movies.
Is that even possible?
Too many.
Too many?
Yeah.
no.
Not with the first. The first was good.
The first was very good.
The second was good. There's one in there that I don't think I've seen all of. There were 3 or there were 4.
I don't know.
I think I lost touch after the second.
I've seen 2. I haven't seen any more than 2.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's because of the race, because of the idea that there's a race to get to it. It seems like it's inevitable that someone actually does create it. And much like the atomic bomb, it'll probably be launched without a true understanding of what its potential is. That's my fear. I'm terrified of it. I think about it all the time. I step back sometimes and I look at like the city of Los Angeles, look at the skyline and all the lights go off, and I'm like, this is all new. Like, this has only been here for a few hundred years. Like, there was nothing here. 1700, there was nothing. This is nothing. Now look at it. It's all lit up, and there's a gigantic grid you see from the sky. Like, what are we looking at 300 years from now? Like, what are we looking at with all these things that we're feverishly attempting to build and create?
Yeah, well, our dependence on the net is sobering. I mean, just forget about all of these highfalutin fears of rogue AI, just we don't have a backup for the internet. I mean, if the internet goes down, what happens in the real world? A lot that is very difficult to recover from. You know, just what happens to your money, right? I mean, what is money when there is no
Right.
Or just imagine some malicious code just destroying the record of money, you know, just like getting into the banking system, right? So it's like you then have to go look for the paperwork you may or may not have on your desk to argue that you have a certain amount of money because, you know, all those bits got scrambled, right? And we need some. I mean, all of this is like just there's so many aspects to this, but the fact that you can now credibly fake audio, right? So someone can sample, you know, 5 minutes of this podcast, and then produce a conversation we've never had in voices exactly like our own, and those edits will no longer be discernible. I mean, we're basically there now, and we're almost there with video, right? Where you could just have our mouths moving in the correct way. So
well, again, I go to Snapchat, these crazy Snapchat filters. I don't know if you know about these, but my daughter, pull up the one of my daughter being Abraham Lincoln. I mean, it's fucking crazy. I mean, it's really rudimentary right now, but
Right.
my 6-year-old loves it. She thinks it's hilarious, and she constantly uses it all the time. Like, she just like, can I play with your phone? And she grabs my phone, and then she starts doing these little videos. Like, somehow or another, their little brains like sync up immediately with the technology. Where
Yeah.
if I gave it to my mom, she'd be like, I don't even know what this is. What do I do? That 6-year-old can figure it out like that.
Yeah.
Check this out.
4 squirrels 7 years ago.
that's hilarious. I've
I
never seen that.
know you have been pooping in your pants today. Thank you, I lost my tooth.
If I showed this to my daughters, you would just never hear from them again. It would.
That's one of the main things that I worry about with AI. That are with the things that we find cute about us being ridiculous like that, or like the sign language guy, or any of these things.
But that's the thing that computers are really good at. I mean, once computers get good at this sort of thing,
But we're programming them.
right. No, but we can program them to fill in the gaps for
Our own stupidity, yeah.
What we want to do is automate repetitive behavior
Right.
and error detection that we know we're not good at.
Right.
So I mean, the moment you have a TSA screening robot that doesn't get distracted. I mean, these machines don't get distracted, right? They don't get hungry. They don't have to take
Right.
bathroom breaks. They're not looking at the person who's looking at them and getting captivated by some social glitch, right? So that if you have a bomb screening robot, that's all it will do, and it will be better once it, you know, whatever the visual signature of a bomb is when you're talking about looking for one in a bag. Once computers get better at that than people, they will be reliable in a way that people can never be, and we know that about ourselves. So we want to outsource all of that stuff. I mean, driving is the perfect example. You know, you don't have self-driving cars that are falling asleep or, you know, reading billboards while they're driving at 80 miles an hour, and so we want that. But the scary stuff is when it can change itself. That's a principle that would allow it to kind of escape from our control, or we build something where we haven't anticipated the consequences, and the incentives are wrong. The incentives are not aligned to make us prudent in the development of that, and an arms race is the worst case for that, because the incentives are to get to the end zone as quickly as you can, because the guy next to you is doing the same,
Right.
and you don't know whether he's ahead of you or behind you, right? And
Right.
and it's a winner take all scenario, because the
Absolutely.
amount of wealth that will go to the winner of this race, if things work, if this person doesn't, or if this group doesn't destroy the world, is unimaginable. I mean, it's just, we're talking about a level of kind of windfall profits that we just haven't seen in any other domain.
Well, a perfect example is the creation of the atomic bomb. I mean, look at 70 years from the creation of the atomic bomb to today, which is literally a blip in human history, just a tiny little blink of an eye. And then the United States emerges as the greatest superpower the world's ever known. And that's going to be directly attributed to those bombs that were dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I mean, that from there on, that's where everything takes off. When you look at human history, if you look at us from 1,000 years from now, it's very likely that they look at that moment and they go, this is the emergence of the American empire.
Yeah, but this is so much bigger than that because the bombs, the power in the bomb was just the implicit threat that you might use them if you get pissed off, right? But you can't do anything with the bombs. Here, we're talking about the resource that does everything. We're talking about intelligence. We're talking about the cure for cancer. We're talking about the best virtual reality entertainment. We're talking about everything that a human being. Once you're talking about general human intelligence and beyond, you're talking about now suddenly having access to the smartest people who have ever lived, who never sleep, who never get tired, who never get distracted, because now they're machines, and the smartest people who have never lived, right? People who are 1,000 times smarter than those people and getting smarter every hour, right? And what are they going to do for you when they're your slaves, right? Because now you're talking about, because you don't have to feed these people, right? They're just working for you. Just like, how powerful would you suddenly be if you had 10,000 of the smartest people in the world working for you full time? They don't have to be fed. They never get disgruntled. They don't need contracts. And they just want to do whatever Joe Rogan wants to do and get done. And you flip a switch and that's your company, right? That's some version of that's going to happen. The question is it going to happen in a way where we get this massive dislocation in wealth inequality, where all of a sudden someone's got a company and products and a business model which obviates 30% of the American workforce in over the span of 3 months, or you have some political and economic and ethical context in which we start sharing the wealth with everyone. And this is the best case scenario. This is when we don't destroy ourselves inadvertently by producing something that's hostile to our interests.
Dan, you look terrified.
Yeah, no, this is what hanging out with Sam does.
I know.
Yeah.
Just listen. We get to a high spot. We get to a high spot. We get a pitcher of margaritas, and we just watch this whole thing. Yeah. Look, we're not going to make it anyway. No one in this room is going to live forever.
When I hang out with Sam, usually his wife's there, so it's like the conversation is a little less
tempered.
Apocalyptic. Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
She keeps me grounded.
Yeah, it's actually awesome because when she's there, she's like just tooling on him, and he giggles and stuff like that. It's like a completely different Sam than the guy who's being an undertaker here and telling you about how we're all going to die from AI.
Yeah, she keeps me honest, but I mean, the truth is it's not. I mean, I'm cautiously hopeful. I mean, there's no way to stop. I mean, there's no brake to pull, right? So it's like it's the inevitability you were describing before. We're moving toward this thing because intelligence is the best thing in the world. I mean, intelligence is the thing that allows us to solve every problem we have or don't know we have. I mean, we're continually discovering new problems. And the question is, what are we going to do? There's some global pandemic arrives, and the challenge is, do you find a vaccine for this thing or not, right? Only intelligence solves that problem for us. We either have the data and we can't interpret it. We have to design the experiments to get the data. And there's no question of us deciding, well, we're just going to stick with the intelligence we've got. I mean, we're not going to do that.
We can't. We can if there's other people that are working on it. It's
exactly right, because there's just too much power. Even if we decided that as American policy, we're not going to let China and North Korea and Singapore and Iran and Israel and all these other countries do it for us. So
find a high spot right above Denver. Big bucket of margaritas.
or the meditation that has helped both of us.
Well, that definitely will help you while human beings are a real thing.
Yes, although I wonder if getting enough people meditating might improve the quality of whatever gets created in the AI community. In other words, if you have people who are a little bit more sane as a consequence of meditation, then maybe the people designing these products, rather these, I don't know if product's the right word, this stuff, then somehow the stuff is better.
Well, I think it's especially relevant for the other side of that, which is when you, I mean, in the near term, we clearly have an employment problem. I mean, there are jobs that will go away that are not coming back, and this is a perennial problem where people need to find meaning in life.
Yep.
But we've always had, it hasn't been such a pressing problem for thousands of years because there's always been so much to do just to survive. Right now, we're going to, in the ideal case, we'll get to a place where there's actually much less that has to be done because we have machines that do it, and we have seen the wisdom of mitigating wealth inequality to some acceptable level, where so all boats begin to rise with this tide to some degree. So whether it's universal basic income or so we have some mechanism to spread the wealth around. But then there's the real question of what do you do with your life?
Yeah. So what do you think people will do?
That's the easiest one.
It's not, but it's not so easy because people are confused.
Those people need to get their shit together. I mean, that's giving someone free time. But find a hobby, man. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to do. If you told me that I never had to work again, and I would just have to find things to do all day, and all my food and everything would be taken care of, that would be the easiest choice I'd have ever made in my life. I would just pursue things. I would just learn how to speak a language. I'd learn how to play an instrument. I'd practice archery more. I'd do jujitsu more. That seems to me so ridiculous. That seems to me that could be solved really easy.
I feel the exact same way, but I think that I'm not convinced. I feel like I could fill endless swaths of free time with a number of things that I'm interested in, including but not limited to meditation or just hanging out with my 2-year-old. However, I'm not sure that the vast majority of humans are like that.
They just need guidance. That seems to be the easiest thing to solve. They just let them know. Go find something fun to do. Go start running up hills, man. Go take up frisbee golf. Just shit to do.
Well,
There's a lot of shit to do.
My concern is that more and more it will take the form of being merely entertained. So we'll like plug into some VR.
The last scene of WALL-E.
I never saw WALL-E.
You the movie WALL-E?
No, I never watched it.
Okay, guys, you should maybe pull this up. But in WALL-E, it's a dystopian future where everybody's riding around in those little, jazzy mobile wheelchairs that people sit in now.
Oh, yeah, Disneyland?
Yes, and they're also they've got huge buckets of soda and like turkey legs and draped, like kind of hooked over the back of their motorized vehicle is a monitor at the front, which is entertaining them. So they're just obese and entertained and immobile, or mobile but not actually ambulatory.
It's Disneyland.